We waited for a very long time to have a conclusive end to the Fairy Tail anime, and I'm happy to say, for those that have waited and all that, you are finally here. It is real. We are having the final season of the series. 51 episodes to cover the final arc, and yeah, it's been a very weird day where, like, I literally fell asleep, woke up, and went, oh fuck, Fairy Tail's out. And, like, it was that kind of expression where I was like, oh shit. Like, I generally forgot that it was today, and I'm like, well then, does it hold up for a lot of people? I know a lot of people have been kind of waiting around, like, seeing whether or not this is going to be kind of worth their kind of time, their money, like, especially since, you know, after, like, having 2014 kind of leaving off, like, and leaving us on the, I believe it was, like, the very early ends of 2016, so for a lot of people, they've waited a while for, this episode to especially come out, and question is, does it hold up, and what happened to Fairy Tail over that year of waiting and all that, like with Natsu and Lucy getting back together and now trying to seemingly find all their other guild members? Let's talk about it right now with this episode of Fairy Tail. So, one thing to say straight off as well, I've already discussed the opening and ending. I have videos on them, and you can see them down below, where I've pretty much talked about what I feel about them, and it is, without a doubt, I think, like, compared to, like, starting of Season 1, Fairy Tail first episode, Season 2, first episode, like, so I'm also thinking this as a first episode towards, like, you know, it's been a while, what are they going to be doing to kind of change a few things around? Are they going to kind of, like, give people a little bit of the catch-up to speed kind of thing with this series? How is it compared to the first episode of Season 1? How is it to Season 2 as well? And to say the least, the way how they treated this episode was definitely like, no, you basically know these characters already. You know what happened last time. It hasn't been that long since, like, the ending of the 2014 run. So, yeah, no, you kind of know, they kind of, the only little bit of recapping that they do at all, if anything, was when they talked about, hey, that last arc was crazy, right? It was Todorus arc, and show, like, case, like, a bunch of clips from, like, the show. That was the most that they did, as we see happy Natsu and Lucy all traveling around trying to find some of their members of, like, Fairy Tail after escaping from, like, they did their little runaway, like they did from the ending of the finale of Season 2. And I will say the design-wise of this season, like, there has been a few changes around with the staffing. Majority it is the same staff as Season 2, so I know a few people are going to be bummed out, but at least with the first episode, I noticed that there was some differences in, like, coloring for the most part. Like, a lot of characters were kind of, like, a little designed a little bit differently. Like, again, that might have been some of, like, just early on, but I definitely noticed it with Natsu a little bit. Like his face looked a little bit different. Same thing can be said with Lucy, and I'm happy to say that, like, all the voice actors sound, they just fit the roles. I just missed hearing them again and all that, like, after all this time, and the little goofy antics. Like, you see, like, Natsu fights this really weird big ball thing. It's like, oh, he's still the same jackass that we know and all that. Like, and, like, even that whilst this whole year's gone down, she's found information on a bunch of the members, and we find out that a lot of them joined a bunch of different guilds since Makarov disappeared, and the first people that they go and visit across their town is, in fact, Wendy, which we find out that Wendy has joined Lamia Scale and are now idols for Lamia Scale. It's weird. Even Natsu was having the same expression I did, like, what? Like, again, I remember the manga was like, oh, they've become pop stars, and it's like, here are the two Sky Sisters, and they're doing a little song and everything, and, like, you're like, what the hell happened here? And then you see Charlotte's turned into, like, a weird humanoid form. You're like, what is going on? Which is apparent for people as well that has seen Dragon Cry. That form kind of comes out of nowhere, and yes, it does come out of nowhere as well in the manga as well, because this was the chapter we were waiting on, where it's like, she just learned transformation magic, and now Charlotte can fight, and she can do magic now, like, apart from her Exceed stuff, which is like, here's a new form, that's pretty much it. I don't have really anything I feel like towards this form, apart from I've never been a big Charlotte fan, and I'm like, sure, give her a humanoid form. It's like, so Wendy has someone to fight with, I guess, but, like, again, like, when I feel like they didn't really need that, like, it was more placed to, like, jokes and, like, I guess, hey, is this little edgy part, like, here and there. again, like, the one notable thing that you see about, like, because you don't get to see how strong Natsu's really become in this episode, or, like, what's happened during that year of training that they had. The one notable thing that you saw, which was, like, Natsu shoots under Lucy's legs, and he hits, like, these people that are jacking this dude's car and all his tools, and you've noticed, like, the insane amount of fire control he has now, where he is able to control this blast, and it knocks one person, goes straight to another guy, and, like, it is like he's actually controlling it, like, say, like, how Romeo and Marco were, like, back when they was, like, teaching how to control things, and it's showing you, like, this is how much he can control, like, a single fire blast at this point, where it's like, no, like, it's kind of showing Natsu has clearly learned a lot more control now of his fire, so it isn't just going to be a giant blast every time. It's just, you know, it's pure concentrated energy. Spoiler alert, it is going to be mainly pure concentrated energy and punching things a lot of the time, but it was a nice little showcase, if anything, and even the fact that Lucy, a part of this episode was like, I can show you how far I've gone, and it's actually willing to spar with Natsu, and it's like, oh, so she's clearly learned some stuff as well. The opening kind of spoils a bit of that, I feel, and especially if you've seen the Dragon Cry movie, again, like, it's, they're kind of like with the anime, they've kind of thinking that, okay, you've either seen a part of this manga, like they kind of think like a lot of people are manga like readers, or that the fact that they didn't care and just watched Dragon Cry and they kind of know some of the stuff that Lucy can do now, and it's like same thing with a lot of the other characters, like. But overall, you find out that they kind of talk to Wendy about this scenario. I was like, oh my god, Ian, what's been up to? Like, how you been and all that? Hey, we're coming back with her. Like, Natsu just presumably, like, thinks that Wendy's okay with this, and she just grabs Wendy and like, well, I'm gonna go take it back to Fairy Tail. See you guys. Bye. And he just, like, drags her out, and it's like, no, she actually likes it here. She's like, you guys left me. Makarov, we all just kind of went our own ways. Like, Makarov abandoned us, which, another thing is, like, not even the council knows where the hell Makarov went, so it's like, what happened to him in that year, and why did he go, why did he disband? It is something to the paramount, because you do see at the start of this episode, they do a weird time jump thing, where it's like, you see very later on into the manga, into the final arc, and you see Natsu, Gray, Lucy, like Urza, and Juvia, and they're all like kind of laying down and they're saying this will be our final battle, and you can see that like Natsu's like got this scar around his face, like you can see that they've been beaten up, and they're saying this is going to be the final day of our battle, and like our final battle like will finally hit here, and it's like it's a little future event, and you see some characters that they've been teasing as well. One especially where it's like, oh, they're just showing her. Okay, that's an interesting thing. Overall, like, yeah, no, they're kind of bringing up, like, or at least hyping up this final arc for the most part, which, since I know some of you people are anime only, I will save that with how I feel about those characters when they actually are officially introduced, I should say. But we get to see with Lamia Scale that they're having this thing. Wendy doesn't want to join Natsu and Lucy. She's like, I'm happy here. And she's like, I don't want to leave Sheria alone. I really care about my friend. And overall, like, I don't want to leave her alone since her sister got married recently, and it's like, she'll be all her own, and even Sheria kind of calls her out on this shit, where it's like, you know, don't kind of treat me like that. It's like, I'm fine, I've got everyone else in Lamia Scale. Unfortunately, they're not able to conclude this, because this piece of shit guild that is rival with Lamia Scale, known as Orochi Thin, are attacking the city, and they're like releasing monsters everywhere, and then you're like, you can tell, like, oh, I wonder if that dude is evil. He's like, the festival of blood will begin, and he's like licking his snake tongue, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if you're the villain. I really cannot tell if you are a bad guy or not. I don't know, Orochi dude. And you're like, oh, they're unleashing all these wolves and ogres and all these terrifying creatures, and then it's just like, one shot, one shot, one shot, one shot, one shot, beating the shit out of them. Interesting enough though, like Natsu goes to go and find the main guy, and then it's like, no, Wendy and Sherry are going to take care of this, and they jack Happy and Charlotte, and they're like, no, we're going to deal with this. The episode ends with like Natsu charging for all of these monsters, and it's like, no, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to bring these people back, and it's like, the episode was pretty much just a straight up continuation. There were not hardly any new additional scenes apart from they were showcasing, you know, the big villains of like the entire final arc, I will say, alongside with like, if I remember the boar stuff, like I think that was all kind of new. It's been a while since I read some of that material for the most part, but overall, like I had fun watching the episode. It wasn't amazing. Again, like we have to go through the Avatar stuff first. So yeah, no, I expect some of these videos. I'm very curious to see how they're gonna handle it, like for the most part. But I liked the episode. Talk about the soundtrack a little bit. It's Yasuharu again, showcasing all of this, and yeah, it's the same fairy tale music that you know and love. Overall, like, the animation-wise quality for the first episode wasn't explosive. Like, it wasn't heavily... The most animated thing that you saw in this episode was that fire effect that Natsu had when he was saving that one villager where it was just flying across everywhere. It was a nice little bit that they showcased on there. And this next episode seems like it's going to have a little bit more of fight choreography, and since like we're actually going to be fighting in this one, and it's like overall like, here are your characters, here's what's happening, this is our current plot line of getting everyone back together. Although the episode showcased very early on that it's like, oh, people are back together, and it showcases as well in the opening what a bunch of characters are looking like right now, and I'm like, this is the one thing I'll say about Fairy Tail's time skip, is it is really disappointing in a lot of ways to me, especially because I think with how it opens up with the arc and everything, and I remember talking about these chapters, but then again, like, a lot of these like, there are a few design, like, Lucy's got a different outfit, it's on there, but it's like, overall, like, it's not a proper time, like, Natsu looks the same, like, the same thing can be said, like, I'm still very salty at, like, how Natsu appears after his 1 year jump with the long hair, scraggly, like, he looks like that other character that we see in the opening, and I'm like, oh, I would like him to look like that, please. Yes, because that is a cooler design. And again, it's like, it feels like they don't really grow for the most part, and it kind of a little annoys me, like, ticks me off a little bit for that, but, I mean, overall, for, like, everything that, like, went down, like, that's gonna be going down for the final arc, and we've got 50, like, odd episodes to wrap all of this up. I'm curious how it is fully going to be handled, since we're now finished, like, the volume 49, I believe. I think we're like 49 to like now volume 50, so we literally have 13 volumes of material to go through, and hopefully, you know, they enhance some of the stuff that I had issues with the manga, because again, I am someone that will classify themselves as a fairy tale fan. I will still say that I do enjoy this series. However, I will say this right now, this final season will be very decisive for a lot of people, because there are some very questionable things that does happen on there. Again, I'm not taking that as like being entirely like, oh, like, I am very happy that this series is back, and I'm glad that people get this animated ending. And again, I've always been a person that has always preferred the anime over the manga, so again, I hope they kind of go through and kind of make some fights and some certain moments a lot better than what they was in the manga. So I'm being flat honest, the episode, the returning first episode, it was fine, I enjoyed it. I will definitely be covering this episode again when the English dub does come out for this. I am very much looking forward to it. This kind of having a, like, at least some, I believe, like, it's coming out 2 to 3 weeks after the episode, so I would have loved it if it was more simulcasted, but, like, again, I'm very happy just to have the English dub for it, because I enjoy the dub for this show so goddamn much, so cannot wait for these episodes to come out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, what you thought about this Fairy Tail episode, but next time we'll be talking about this, we'll be talking about the preview, so stay tuned for that, but that's all from me. Thank you as always for watching. See you guys, though, next time.